So you are running for the 6th Congressional District. Election day is 2 weeks away. What are some of your goals if you were to be elected to this position?
My number one goal is around codifying the right to abortion through Roe v. Wade. That's absolutely imperative. It's been pushed down to the states level, and what it has led to has been chaos across the country. And what it means is that women's health care is dependent on their geography. So we don't have the constitutional rights that we should have as women in this country to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? And that has to mean having adequate health care. And when I think about abortion access, what that means to me is women who are miscarrying can go to the hospital and be assured that they're going to get care. Miscarriages are devastating and they're difficult. And when we have these very stringent abortion laws on the books at the state level, it really creates a situation where pregnancy loss is criminalized, right? And so when women are going through that, and it's so difficult and it's so heartbreaking, a lot of these pregnancies are very wanted pregnancies. They need to be assured that they're going to have adequate health care at that devastating time in their lives.
Of course. And you bring up reproductive rights. In vitro fertilization has been a huge topic of conversation, especially here in Alabama with the Alabama Supreme Court's ruling in February. Do you think that there needs to be a federal mandate or a federal way to ensure access to IVF?
Absolutely. There was actually a bill through the Senate on this very recently. Tammy Duckworth's bill must pass that type of a bill. We must have that adequate right to all women should have the right to IVF. It's incredibly important for people to be able to build their families the way that they want to build their families, right? Going through IVF is really hard. It's difficult and it's challenging, and we want people to have the right to do that without some of the questions around how can this happen, and can this happen in my home state of Alabama that I love it here and we want to stay here and we want to build our families here, and we need to make sure that people can do that. My opponent, Gary Palmer, mentioned to a constituent recently that he would vote against Tammy Duckworth's IVF bill. He likened IVF to gene-edited designer babies, which is, tragic, and that's not the way that it is. And we want to make sure that people have that right to access IVF.
What exactly would that IVF legislation do?
It would be the right to ensure that people have access to IVF, that they can do it where they live, that we don't apply fetal personhood to IVF. One of the big things that has come up recently, I talked to some IVF doctors very recently. We had a town hall on this very topic. And one of the questions that came up was, should I move my embryos outside of Alabama? And the IVF doctors and the IVF attorneys that were on that call were kind of torn on this, and they said, if I was doing it, I might move them out, but some of the doctors said we will not accept embryos from Alabama in our clinics outside of the state. So ensuring that people can do IVF where they live and are allowed to do that in the way that they see fit between them and their doctor.
Another big topic of conversation this election cycle is the economy. There are people who aren't making ends meet or barely making ends meet. Inflation has had a huge impact on a lot of Americans and a lot of Alabamians. What, in your opinion, is the solution to getting the economy back to a level where Alabamians aren't hurting?
Well, I think the Inflation Reduction Act is incredibly important. We need to be cognizant of the fact that raising prices is not just something that magically happens, right? We know that corporations are raising prices on a lot of things. One thing that has come up a lot in the presidential debate and the presidential election has been the idea of tariffs. We know that applying very big tariffs is going to increase the prices of everything across the board. So we absolutely cannot do that, right? Another thing for me is jobs. Right? We want to make sure that we're bringing home jobs to Alabama. I'm a business owner in Alabama. Of course, want to make sure that we have plenty of jobs here. It has been really challenging in Alabama. Even a place like this with such a great cost of living, it can be difficult to attract workers to Alabama and attract businesses to Alabama who could then, be our clients as a small business owner. So we want to make sure that we have infrastructure here to support job growth, to make sure that we have appropriate the tax reform to support small businesses and individuals as well. We want to make sure that we have things like the child tax credit. Expanding that will help a lot of families. We have seen how that has lifted families out of poverty. So we want to make sure that we have things in place where we're really thinking about everyday Alabamians, but we're also thinking about job growth.
Now, this district, the 6th Congressional District, surrounds the city of Birmingham. The city of Birmingham, unfortunately, while overall violent crime is going down, has seen an increase in homicides. Of course, the terrible tragedy that happened in September with the mass shooting, and then another one earlier this year. What do you think can be done at the federal level that may help the city of Birmingham?
We have to address gun violence. And I know that when we talk about guns, sometimes people think, oh, there are only two sides, giving a gun to everybody or taking everybody's guns away. I don't believe that's the case. I am both a gun owner and a childhood survivor of gun violence. And so I know what it's like to be shot at, right? As a child, it's scary and it's devastating and it has lifelong impacts. So for me, one of the things that we absolutely must do is have gun reform. And that, again, does not mean taking everybody's guns away, right? That's not what that has to look like. But what it can look like is keeping guns out of the hands of dangerous criminals who don't need to have guns, people who are violent, people who are going to hurt us and our families and our communities and our children, right? Those people don't need to have guns. And so when we expand background checks, that's a great way to do it. Expand red flag laws to keep guns out of people who have proven themselves to be violent. Make sure that we have things in place to make sure that people can have their guns, but not violent people.
Yeah. A lot of people think that, the people who have these guns and are doing this type of taking part in this type of violence, that they are illegal guns. Is there anything we can do about illegal weapons being in the U.S., being in Birmingham, Alabama?
Yes, so I've read a lot of research on this topic. Again, as someone who is a childhood survivor of gun violence, this is an issue that's really important to me. Also, as a mom who sends my kids to school and doesn't want it to be the last time I say goodbye to them every morning. So I read the research on this, and the research is pretty clear that decreasing the overall number of guns also decreases the number of guns in the hands of violent criminals. Again, like I said, we have to make sure that people are not getting guns that they shouldn't have. There have been a number of cases of violent crime where people were able to legally access guns through things like the loophole that you can get if you go to a gun show. So we know those things exist, and we know that that's how people are accessing these guns. Also, adequate insurance for guns and gun safety storage laws. If we're storing our guns safely, then they're much less likely to get stolen and be put into the hands of bad people.
What's your stance on immigration reform?
Well, there's a lot of research on this too, and I've been reading a lot on this topic as well. Two things that I want to say. One, from an emotional level, when people are coming to this country, they're often in a situation of desperation, right? They need somewhere to go. They're scared, and they are having troubles at home, and so they need somewhere to go. I know that there are lots of legal pathways currently, and so as people are coming here legally, we want to make sure that those legal pathways remain open. America is a wonderful country and we love it here, and it's okay to sort of share that. But when we come back to the economic level, there's a lot of research on this as well that shows that immigration is good for the economy, right? It helps us have jobs. It increases the number of jobs here. It increases the number of taxpayers in our country. And people who are immigrating here illegally cannot, they cannot take advantage of safety net programs. We know that. They can't vote, right? That comes up pretty often. They can't vote. But they are here increasing the number of people who are paying taxes. So we definitely want to have that. For me, when I think about immigration, I think about wanting to do it in a way that makes economic sense for our country, but is also sensitive to the needs of other people. And part of that has to look like foreign aid to other countries to ensure that we're creating a more stable situation at home. So we can kind of decrease that.
And you mentioned, foreign relations, foreign aid. The wars between Russia and Ukraine continue, as well as Israel and Hamas. What is your stance on the U.S. being involved in those wars?
More generally, my stance on any type of foreign conflict or war is that the correct number of civilian deaths in those is 0. And that has to be for every country, and it also has to be for American troops, right? We don't want American troops to die, but we don't want civilians in other countries to die. So I'd really like to see more diplomatic solutions being addressed with some of those countries to see how we can sort of prevent that and keep people safe.
Those are pretty much all the questions I had for you. If there's anything else, though, that you wanted to say, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. We are gearing up for Election Day. We're really excited about it. Looking forward to an exciting, fun time on November 5th, hoping that people will come out and vote. It's a really important election, so we need everyone coming out.